Good afternoon and welcome to West Fargo City Hall. Today we're meeting to discuss the issues that we're going to be experiencing with the spring flood. But before I get into all of that and introduce you to some of the people, I want everyone to understand that West Fargo is very well positioned to deal with the issues that are forthcoming with the spring melt. The Cheyenne diversion, the condition of Cheyenne River, and the work that our staff has done over the years positions us very well. In the 27-year history of the diversion, it has never failed. It has always served our community very well. In 1997 and 2009, when it was a little more trying, it always prevailed. Despite that, there's still been a lot of preparation going on. As the media has told the public, the City of Fargo and the Cass County, Moorhead, they've all been working diligently for a number of weeks. So has West Fargo. We've also had meetings. Our staff people have been getting together and discussing this. They've been keeping my fellow commissioners and I abreast with that. And then also the City of West Fargo and Cass County and Moorhead has invited some of our expertise, our Public Works Director, myself, our Emergency Service Manager, Pierre Freedom. We've all been going to these meetings. So we look at this as one community, as one problem, and we all stand together on this. Today we are issuing an emergency declaration that enables the city to best prepare for potential risks. This is part of a protocol that's necessary for the financial reimbursement from FEMA. So that's why the cities are doing this in advance before they start doing anything, spending any money and things like that, because when it comes to flooding and flooding emergencies and flooding expenses, these are reimbursable by FEMA. So with that, I'm going to read to you right now the emergency declaration. Whereas the City of West Fargo has a high soil moisture content from precipitation received during 2018 and 2019, and whereas the potential for spring flooding is significant due to the spring thaw and anticipated precipitation, and whereas the impact of this thaw, runoff, and precipitation threatens the health, well-being, and public safety of citizens in the City of West Fargo, and whereas necessary mitigation measures, preparedness actions, and other responses must begin immediately to protect public health and safety, and whereas the potential damage to public infrastructure and private property are beyond normal anticipated and budgeted funds, and now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 37-17.1-05, the West Fargo City Commission President, myself, does hereby declare an emergency and orders the activation and utilization of the West Fargo Emergency Operations Plan, its procedures, attachments, and appendices to recover from the situation, develop a detailed damage assessment, reduce hardship, and initiate the appropriate relief actions and mitigation measures by departments and agencies of local government to limit the hardships and impact of this emergency upon the citizens of West Fargo. Dated at West Fargo, North Dakota, today. Thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our Finance Director, Jim Larson, Matt Marshall, our Economic Development, Chris Brungert, Public Works, Eric Jerdovig, City Commissioner, Mark Simmons, City Commissioner, Brad Olson, City Commissioner, Mike Thorstead, City Commissioner, Chief Dan Fuller, Fire Department, Chief Yankee. Getting on next is Dustin Scott, our City Engineer, and at this time I'll turn it over to Dustin.
Well, thank you, Commission President Dardis. We are certainly very fortunate to have a diversion that has been in operation for 27 years, and I'd like to at least go through a brief summary of what the diversion is, how it operates, and to start with, I'd like to point out some differences as we monitor and prepare for a spring melt that are a little different than our other communities as they prepare and fight the floods on the Red River. commonly referred to as stage elevations or the crest of a river in Fargo. We look a little differently at things like the flow rates, flow conditions in the Cheyenne River. So the flow in terms of cubic feet per second as it's coming from upstream really starts to influence our preparation for dealing with the spring melt and operating the diversion. So off to my left here is a map that, colorful as it is, I wanted to just kind of run through the Cheyenne River Diversion project from the south end, the upstream end, to the north side of West Fargo, the downstream end. So at the very bottom of the map is, on the south side of the Horace, our city of Horace, is the start of the Horace Diversion Channel, which is designed to a 100-year event. Basically takes 55% of the flows that are coming in the Cheyenne River and diverts them around town. The other 45% of the flow is allowed to pass through the river in town here, south of I-94. So what this does is puts us on alert for things like containing that river through town. What are the conditions of the riverbanks, and being or anticipating potential like ice jams or other things that can create somewhat of a challenge for us in terms of localized flood scenarios. Now, once we get to I-94, there is a gate structure on the river that is closed when the flows are getting high enough, and that cuts all water flow through town. All of the river is at that point then diverted around West Fargo in the West Fargo Diversion Channel. So the West Fargo Diversion Channel is designed to a higher capacity than the Horace Diversion Channel and is now able to take all of that flow from the Cheyenne River upstream, which is 4,600 CFS. Once that makes its way around town, there is another gate structure on the north side that we will operate and shut if the conditions downstream and influencing factors like the elevation of the Red River or other tributaries like the Maple or Rush River can create tailwater conditions that will send overland waters towards West Fargo. By closing that gate and with our contingency levees in place and our permanent levees around the perimeter of West Fargo, we are protected against that overland flooding. So really in a nutshell, what we are spending a lot of time focusing on at this point is the high water level in the river on the south side of the interstate, which can present a risk of a breakout if the condition of the riverbank is compromised, if it's sloughed, if a resident has leveled it down for some landscaping features, things like that, and again, monitoring ice jams. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Public Works Director, who is really our command at this point in all things in terms of preparation for the spring melt.
Thank you, Dustin. To kind of reiterate what Dustin's talking about, our biggest concerns is the amount of flow that's coming down the Cheyenne River and into the diversion. We're more concerned, as Fargo is talking about levels and just kind of tell us how much total amount of waters can be in the system. What those higher levels do to us is it extends the length of time that we're going to be operating the diversion, and in many cases into May and June. What we're looking at right now is a very high potential. This could be something like a 2009-2013 event. So we're looking at the river's going to be full, the Cheyenne diversion is going to be full, and what we're really going to be taking a look out there is monitoring the riverbanks. We're going to be looking at the inflow and infiltration to our sanitary sewers. Whenever there's ponding water, we want to make sure that we're able to drain that ponding water off. We'll be looking at the condition of the riverbanks. If they're sloughing, we're going to be trolling the riverbanks. We're going to be very concerned about any type of large rains or storm events, power outages, things that are going to stop us from being able to drain any water inside the system. As Dustin was describing, the system, once we operate the gates and it's in operation, everything that's inside the city needs to be pumped out. So if we're if the power goes out, we have a lot of different issues. We've have many contingency plans. We've been inventorying all our traffic control devices, our backup generators, our 3, 4, and 6-inch pumps. We have Cristofoli pumps are ran by tractors. So we have many different types of abilities to respond to any of our issues. Getting ready for this event, we're meeting twice weekly right now with all our members of our Emergency Operations Committee. We put out an emergency declaration today, engineering services for requests for services for any type of redoubling our efforts of technical staff to be out there in the field if we need to build any contingency dikes. We're checking and recheck the operation of our gates, our pumping systems. We're doing all sorts of contingency planning. So we have supplies of sandbags, clay on hand for emergency closures. So I think we're in a very good place for responding to the storm, to the flood, and anything that may happen in the meantime. We're also going to be providing assistance to many of our surrounding communities down the reaches of the Cheyenne River into Horace, out into Cass County, and Fargo if they need any assistance. With that, I'll turn it over to Commission President Dardis.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dustin. Are there any questions? Well, as Chris and Dustin have very articulately pointed out, our biggest concerns and issues that we deal with are going to be ice jams and overland flooding to the west. And so I'm reaching out to the public today to ask them to help us monitor. The police department, the fire department, and all of the departments are working together, and we will be monitoring the river. We will be monitoring the river banks and that type of thing. But if the public sees anything that's out of the ordinary, that they think that the water's rising at an extraordinary level due to an ice jam or something like that, then we'd encourage you to call, or we've got a couple of things here. The telephone number is 433-5400. Or there's on a website of springmelt at westfargond.gov. And of course, the City of West Fargo is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and joining the Next Door Neighbor. So all of these things are going to be monitored for the public so we can continue to communicate. I'd also like to introduce to you Melissa Richard, our Communications Director. She'll be putting forward most of this information to all the various department heads and, of course, to my fellow commissioners. One other thing in the State of Technology of 2019, Chief Yonke has 2 registered drone operators. Chief Dan Fuller, the fire department does too. So we're going to also be using drone technology as a benchmark. We'll probably fly the river in the next day or two so we know where the river banks are as far as there's any sloughing or anything like that and get an idea. We've also been in communication with the Bald Hill Dam. They have been releasing some water. We expect that water to probably go through West Fargo in the next day or so. We know that it's past Kindred already. And we don't think it's going to create any problems. So again, I want you to know that Chris and I and Pierre, we've been in meetings with all of the staff and the emergency folks for Cass County as well as the City of Fargo. And the other call that I would make to the City of West Fargo and its citizens is that if there is a call for sandbagging or at Sandbag Central in Fargo or at Cass County Maintenance Building that's located just west out here by the fairgrounds, that I encourage all of our folks of the great City of West Fargo to assist and help in any way that we can, because we're one community. We're 3 different communities, but we're seamless. So with that, again, is there any questions that anybody might have? All right, well, thank you again all for attending. Have a good day.